What is perfection? And who decides what perfection is? So this is back in the day. I had a 10-disc audio program. It took me 6 months to create that audio program. And I kept recording it and then I'd delete it and then I'd record it and then I'd delete it. And then I would sit around and I would watch TV for a week. Then I'd feel guilty and overeat food and feel like shit. But I kept telling everyone, it's just because I'm a perfectionist. I want to make sure that it's perfect. What I didn't realize that if I just did it in a week, I could have it out. I'd be getting feedback and then I could adapt and change it and make version 2 or series 2 within that 6-month period. And I would already have a better product and a better program. But I went back and I started doing a lot of mindset work around it. And I started asking myself, what is perfection? And who decides what perfection is? And when I ask those 2 questions, game changer. So if you ask yourself, if you're a perfectionist or you think that you're a perfectionist, ask yourself, what is perfection? How do I know when I've achieved it? How do I know when I've got it? And who decides whether something's perfect or not? And what you'll find is that there is no definition for perfectionism. No one can really define what perfection is in the first place. So therefore, it doesn't really exist. So when people label themselves as a perfectionist, what they're really doing is they're someone who lives with unrealistic expectations of themselves and others or life in general, and they create an expectation that they can never live up to. So therefore, it gives them an excuse to not do things. And it creates a fear of delivery or a fear of doing something or a fear of not being good enough, and that's expressed out in the form of perfectionism. So what I've found is that a lot of people who have a fear of not being good enough will call themselves perfectionists, but then the thing that they create is never good enough. That reinforces a pattern of behavior that they have, that they're not good enough, which then stops them from delivering something because they're afraid of criticism, they're afraid of judgment, because once again, it just reinforces a pattern that they're not good enough. This idea of perfectionism was stopping me from doing stuff. It was stopping me from improvement. Now, I do not consider myself a perfectionist. In fact, I don't even think about perfection because I've never ever seen it. I've never ever seen this idea of perfection. I mean, nature is pretty fucking amazing, but I wouldn't consider it perfect. Grass grows. Like, I mowed my lawns the other day and within 2 days, the grass has already grown again. It looks all a bit out of whack, like it needs another mow again. Is nature imperfect? Now, if nature is beautiful and nature inspires you, yeah, it's imperfect, then what is the chances that you're going to be perfect? What are the chances that your product or the service or whatever you're doing on a day-to-day basis is going to be perfect? It's pretty much zero. But maybe the perfection is in the imperfection in itself. Maybe the growth is the perfection. Maybe the learning and the lessons and evolution of something is the perfection. So maybe the idea of perfection is in seeing things progress and grow and learn and adapt and change, because that seems to be the most amazing thing in the universe and nature. But my point is that if you label yourself as a perfectionist, the truth is you are really someone who is scared, you're afraid of judgment, you're afraid of criticism, you're afraid of things not being good enough based on that judgment and the criticism, and so therefore you've labeled yourself as a perfectionist, which doesn't even exist in the first place. I hope that anyone who's listening here who is a perfectionist will just stop that label, because it really does stop you from being great. It stops you from just getting out there and trialing something and trying to be better and doing something where you can have consistent and never-ending improvement. So I would reconfigure what I'm doing in life and stop talking about perfectionism or being a perfectionist. Admit to yourself you're scared, that you're afraid of judgment, you're afraid of criticism, and really it's other people's implanted values or imposed values that will tell you that it's not good enough. So my recommendation is just become someone who looks for progression. Be better every day. Improve things consistently and look for consistent improvement, look for consistent growth. That's way more important and way better than perfectionism. And I guarantee you, you'll achieve way more as someone who progresses and looks for progression than someone who is a perfectionist who keeps putting stuff off. Look for growth and you will win the game of life.